President Zhang and Dr. Rebam, Professor Zhang and Professor Li, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the National Open University to give us this opportunity to open this forum. And such an important subject, especially all of us understand, it is a hard issue, use my word, in Taiwan right now. And also, we know this is also the co-host by the National Academy of the Civil Services. Okay. Of course, our keynote speaker, Dr.Stevens and give us the important talk about citizen engagement and government performance. As we know, we recently we have government re-engineering in these years, but what kinds of performance, what kinds of outcome we have, that will be a very important issue. On the discussion today, this morning, I think we try to evaluate the performance of the government from the different perspectives. Of course, the very important one is citizen engagement can improve the performance. Except the citizen engagement, I think some other perspective we also should be pay attention. For example, like the budget and budgeting and the finance, those kinds of important topics. Today, this morning, Dr. Rebam will give us the very important talk about these issues. And his major in public policy, government performance, and also, of course, financial management. He's got his degree from the North Carolina University from the Department of the Political Science. And he also is an elected fellow for the National Academy of the Sciences right now. And also the visiting professor in Australia, that's for the Carnegie Mellon University, part of the Carnegie University in Australia. So let's welcome Dr. Stevens, Rebam first. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jan, Minister Jan. And also thank you, Dr. Cheng, for the welcome. Very kind of you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this distinguished panel of public administration scholars at the National Open University today. And I want to make brief remarks because I want to leave ample time for exchanges and discussion about this topic with the my distinguished colleagues on this panel, and I want to learn more about the development of the performance management movement and budgeting movement in Taiwan. So what I'd like to do is briefly help frame our discussion. And I'd like to talk about two ongoing worldwide movements to strengthen public administration that I have in a small way participated in, both in government over a long career and as a writer and researcher. One of these movements involves increased use of explicit policy goals, targets, and measures of performance to manage government and to drive improvement. And I know you've got experience with that here in Taiwan, and I hope we can talk about that. It's the second movement I want to highlight. Again, it's a global movement. It involves efforts to engage citizens more directly in shaping public policy choices between elections, and in some cases, co-producing with government desired outcomes of policy. These two sets of developments, these two movements, which take different forms in different places, are related. Both have, or should have, the result that governments become more transparent, more accountable, and more responsive to the needs of their citizens. So let me start with a basic, even obvious point about the context for these developments in public administration. Governments are formed by a society's people to protect and advance their collective interests. Their performance should be judged, and is judged when they're democratically governed, primarily by whether and how well they serve those interests. In many cases, governments fall short in the eyes of citizens, many of whom simply lose interest in government, or even lose faith in its ability to improve their lives. But democratic governments are designed so that they are open to change and improvement, and they're granted legitimacy by citizens to the extent that they respond to their failures by improving their ability to meet the collective needs of their citizens. To take an important example, the preamble to the U.S. Constitution lays out the missions or goals of the federal government in broad terms. This is quoting from the Constitution as written in 1791, still the same. It established a new government to, and this is the mission statement of that government, to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, we would say public safety today, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So setting goals for government is not new. What is new is the effort to organize much of government policymaking and administration around an explicit set of performance goals and targets. So what's new is the use of these goals to prioritize resources through the budget process, to manage programs, and to communicate with the public about what is being achieved. I've been involved in what we may call the performance movement in government, and I can tell you it's not a simple change, nor does it happen overnight. While in government, I worked with others at the President's Office of Management and Budget, OMB. It's also his primary career staff to coordinate policy and to oversee management of the executive branch of the government. I worked there as part of the staff trying to coordinate policy across the government, across the executive branch, and to oversee management of major ministry. To carry out what we did collectively is we carried out the first comprehensive set of assessments of the performance of every major federal government program. Over 1,000 programs over a five-year period were graded on various dimensions of their performance and management. The results of that effort are rating and scoring of each program. A program might be rated effective, or moderately effective, or merely adequate, or ineffective, as some programs that we rated were rated ineffective, or results not demonstrated, meaning there's just not enough performance information about this program for the program actually to discern, to tell how itself how well it's doing, or to tell citizens what it's accomplishing. And over 1,000 of these ratings and the explanations and the detailed links to documents that were used in the rating process all were published on the web and made available to anyone, along with all of the background information that anyone would want to know about that program. So thus, anyone could see in some detail how each program was assessed, how it was graded, and why. We used these assessments as a basis for recommending improvements in the way programs were implemented, managed. and in some cases as a justification for ending them and moving the resources to other more effective programs to accomplish the same goals. In my own writing, I co-edited a book for the National Academy of Public Administration on this and other efforts that the subtitle of the book was How Governments Learn from Experience, which I have joked in my more discouraged moments should have been titled, Can Governments Learn from Experience? We have learned from that rating experience that I just described. The Obama administration, the current administration, has taken a different, more focused approach. But each wave of reform using performance information to help improve the management and performance of government and to help improve the budget process to redirect resources to more effective uses. Each of those waves has built on the previous wave. So it has been a learning process. The current approach emphasizes a smaller number of major priorities and commits to explicit performance targets for those. It is arguably more efficient in the use of staff time, and it's better suited to engaging program managers in the effort than the previous effort that I just described. Transforming the way leaders and administrators think and talk about their work, changing the norms and culture of public bureaucracies, and institutionalizing basic changes in the way governments make budget and policy choices, the way bureaucracies manage programs, is a long twilight struggle. It also requires political leaders who can talk to their ministries in a new language of performance and results, and can communicate clearly and honestly with the public about what they're doing and why. The real test of all these efforts is whether they improve government's performance in meeting the needs of citizens, and whether sooner or later citizens recognize and reward this improvement. The outcome of those efforts, both in the US and in other countries, is still very much in doubt. I've also been involved to some extent in the second movement that I want to talk about, and I want to highlight efforts to deepen citizen engagement and realize a greater measure of democratic control over policy and its implementation. This is an effort with a longer history, but I want to focus particularly on the opportunities that low-cost, pervasive information and communications technology is presenting now for governments to engage with their citizens. We are, I think, at the very early stages of using this new power and tool set to involve citizens in making choices between elections, and in the process to deepen and enrich their understanding of the choices they collectively face as a society. This also has the potential effect of closing the distance between people and their government, so that they don't feel it as an alien force, but as an instrument of their own to achieve important collective goals. My colleague and the head of the program at Carnegie Mellon University in Adelaide's graduate public management program in Adelaide, Australia, Terry Buss, where I'm now teaching, he and I have written about this change under the title Modernizing Democracy. Innovations to engage citizens can take many shapes. For example, they include online collaborative forums that allow people to voice their views and, importantly, interact with one another and learn from each other without having to be in the same place, and without the usual social pressures that elevate some views and suppress others. The focus of these collaborative forums can range widely. They can be forums dealing with complex policy problems in which a diverse group of stakeholders, people with a direct interest in the program or policy, tap expert views and then work collaboratively to develop a consensus on the way forward. Or they can be a series of local or national forums in which people emulate the budget choices that government makes, similar to those their leaders are facing at that time. As a budget analyst long-standing, I believe better decisions are made when there's a realistic budget constraint imposed. So I like these kinds of forums where citizens both learn through their interactions and with data analysis and with each other. So they're interacting both with data in a rich, data-rich environment and with each other as citizens. And then they communicate their choices at the end of the forum, consensus or lack of consensus, to leaders. This kind of collaboration, when it involves a representative set of citizens, produces a far richer, more complex, and therefore more useful body of information about public opinion than the usual techniques of public opinion surveys that average together informed and uninformed opinions and do not provide people with information or context or an opportunity to learn, to engage with each other, to render truly informed judgments, much less to interact with each other directly. So, or to take another example, crowdsourcing or crowdfunding techniques can be used to elicit a wide range of practical ideas for improving government performance. And maybe we could talk about some of these applications later. The best ideas in this process, attracting the most positive votes from the crowd, then rise to the top for consideration by leaders to be evaluated more carefully and then implemented. Or policies themselves can be designed so that they maximize the opportunities for citizens to co-produce services that the people that most directly benefit from the services can engage directly through the policy design in designing how that policy applies to them or their community. As just one example, the U.S. provides 1.5 million low-income families, households with housing vouchers that allow them to shop in the private market for modestly priced rental housing of their choice. So this portable voucher allows them to find the unit and the location that are best suited to their needs. And that's more efficient than if the government were to build and operate low-cost housing for the poor. We learned this from experience. So where do these two movements that I've just described join and complement each other? I'd like to demonstrate the answer to that with a website that has been developed by the governor of one U.S. state, the state of Maryland. He calls the process, Governor O'Malley of the state of Maryland, calls this process performance stat or state stat. And he's been managing his state government for the past 5 years using this process and communicating with the public about how his priority objectives are being achieved, what's been accomplished. So here you see the Maryland website as anybody would see it who went to it for the state of Maryland. And I'm now going to pull up the governor's 15 strategic goals. So you can see this is a very user-friendly website. There's the governor there. And these are 15 goals. It's an interactive site, so if you're interested, let's say, in education, as this audience probably is, so click on that. So here the goal is to improve student achievement in school and college career readiness in Maryland by 25% by the end of the year 2015. So this goal was set at the start of the first term of this governor, who was reelected a year ago. This scorecard shows citizens that 26.9% of the goal has been delivered. That's a check mark indicating pretty good progress. And here's three more specific measures of progress. Children entering kindergarten fully ready. In 2005, 2006, 60% of the children in the state of Maryland were entering kindergarten ready for kindergarten. If you want to know what that means, you can drill down and find out the details. Today, or more recently, 83%. Second, middle school math proficiency has improved from 60% to 76% in that same period, about 6 years. And middle school reading proficiency has improved from 70 to 82%, 17.5% increase. And here you can see the trend lines. And then there are other measures down below. And if you're interested in a particular action that's been taken toward the goal, you can click on these links and then drill down and get much more detail. There's discussion of what is being done to meet the goal, the strategies that are being employed. and then opportunities, various opportunities depending on the goal for getting involved. So here you have a direct link. If you're interested in education in the state of Maryland, you can go directly to these other sources of sites, sources of information, and also opportunities to get directly involved. So that's how the governor shows the citizens what he's trying to accomplish. That's how he communicates. It's also how he talks about the strategies the state is using. And the governor's holding himself accountable, and his administration publicly accountable for these results. That's a risky thing for a governor to do. Right? So he signed up for this. Second, and I think this is equally interesting, the governor himself, along with his chief of staff and other senior executives, uses the same goals and performance information to actively manage the government on an ongoing basis. His so-called delivery unit, which is modeled somewhat after a unit with the same name in the UK's Blair government, ensures that the relevant data are collected and reported accurately in a form that allows the governor or his senior managers and others to sit down on a regular basis and review progress regarding each of these indicators, each of these goals. And these are I've sat in on one of them some years ago. These are intense, data-rich discussions that focus relentless attention of many people on solving problems and moving faster toward the goal. The meetings end with directions to the ministers and managers to take specific actions that have been chosen during the discussion to remove obstacles and to accelerate progress. And then managers are held accountable at the next monthly or quarterly meeting for reporting on whether these actions worked or not, and what else they're doing to continue the progress toward the goal. And this is a continuous process also of learning and adaptation and improvement. So the governor's authority and occasionally his direct engagement, he doesn't always come, but there's always the threat that he will pop in. So that creates a certain tension in these engagements. Obviously, it provides a sense of urgency. So this is a possible model for a new way of governing that focuses on goals and drives improved performance, coupled with a new form of citizen engagement. It's by no means perfect or complete, but the outlines are clear. So let me just sum up. This new approach uses and communicates goals for improving people's lives that can be measured, are achievable, but are also ambitious. It uses the same goals to manage and drive improvement within the government. It's a management tool as well as a communication tool. Goals are used to engage and focus the creative energies of civil society and the many people who have a direct or indirect interest in the outcomes. And by these means, to help realize the promise of democratic government, help close the gap between government and citizens, and deliver the results that people want government to deliver. I feel as though we're at the beginning of a transformation. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Reben. Yeah, Steve. Yeah, I think that give us the very basic information. On this, the information we can continue our discussion. Okay, so. Following this, we will invite our two discussants to give us some major comments for this subject. Okay, please. Okay, Professor Lee.
My distinguished host, Dr. Zhang, and my honorable alumni, Dr. Stevens, Reben. It's such a great opportunity to meet you today. Because I think it seems to me that today is alumni reunion day. 今天是校友重聚啊，因为我跟他都是北卡大学的校友啊。Dr. Reben is the outstanding alumni of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And he is the PhD of the political science, and I am the PhD of the public policy. And we know the same guys in political science. My advisor, William Kitch, he was the chair of the Department of Political Science in Chapel Hill. So I think it's my honor to share with you and to listen to your impressive talk today. Yeah, small word, yes, yes. And but in 2007, I was a Fulbright visiting scholar to the Kennedy School at Harvard University. And one day, a Harvard professor asked me a funny question. He said, "Hey Jack, could you tell me the difference between Taiwan and the United States?" I say, "Well, let me think about it." And I say, "Oh, I really have no idea." And that professor answered to me that, he said, "Let me tell you the answer. The difference between Taiwan and the United States is that in the United States, we have Johnny Cash, who is a very famous singer. We have Bob Hope, who is a very famous comedy actor. We also have Stevie Wonder, who is a very famous black singer. In other words, we have Cash, Hope, and Wonder, which you don't have." Well, it's just a joke. Today, I think, I think we don't have, there is no difference between Dr. Rabin's points and mine, because my research is focused on the performance budgeting and performance management. So I think this is very good opportunity to talk about this talk about the performance and the citizen engagement. And I think the government has historically reacted to periods of fiscal stress and budget deficits by placing an increased emphasis on program performance and accountability. A major task confronting public policy today is to demonstrate to stakeholders that the government work. I think the term stakeholder is used broadly to include clients, citizens, elected officials, advocacy groups, government funding agencies, and etc. And I think the relationship between the government and the citizen engagement is highly related to the concept of the new governance or public governance. The concept of governance has been explored in many academic fields, including political science, public administration, policy making, planning, and sociology. Governance refers to the creation, execution, and implementation of activities backed by the shared goals of citizens who may or may not have formal authority and policing power. And I maintain that the new governance involves not simply tools, but also practice and the process for people to participate in the work of government. With many others, I argue that public managers ought to facilitate greater citizen engagement in the work of government. The new governance also involves people and the process through which they participate in the work of government. Practitioners are using new quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial governance process, including deliberative democracy, e-democracy, public compensations, participatory budgeting, which I will mention later. Citizen juries, study circles, collaborative policy making, and alternative dispute resolution to permit citizens and stakeholders to actively participate in the work of government. I think the citizens who are affected by particular government decisions normatively have the right to participate in the formation of public decisions. However, sometimes government decisions, particularly tax and the budget choice, are technical and complex, like Dr. Reben mentioned. The tax and the budget issues are pretty complex, making citizen participation especially difficult. The debate over the balance between direct and the representative democracy continue today. I will summarize some of the arguments for and against direct citizen participation. The arguments for direct citizen engagement include the following. Number one, direct participation promotes citizen active public spirit and moral character. Number two, direct participation educates citizens about the democracy and the democratic idea. Number three, direct participation provides psychic rewards to citizens, including a sense of belonging to a community. Number four, direct citizen participation legitimates public decisions. Number five, direct participation protects citizens' freedoms. Number six, direct participation provides citizens with a voice to challenge the existing power structure. Number seven, direct citizen engagement can minimize delays since representative systems are not as flexible and do not adapt quickly to changing circumstances. On the other hand, there are some arguments against direct citizen participation. For example, number one, citizens are not rational or necessarily dedicated to the democratic ideas. Number two, mass direct citizen involvement is too expensive, slow, and the average citizen does not understand the complexity of managing a government. Number three, interest groups are entrenched and dominate political decisions, and not everyone is informed, knowledgeable, and qualified to weigh in on all decisions. Number four, direct participation requires skills, money, and the time that most citizens lack. Number five, taken to extreme, direct participation is disruptive and can increase political conflict. However, I would argue that the citizens who are affected by particular government decisions have the right to participate in the formation of public decision. And you mentioned, Dr. Reben mentioned the how to exploit technology to foster deeper citizen engagement. For example, you mentioned online collaborative forums. I would like, today I would like to introduce a pretty good article in Public Administration Review in 2008 to you guys. This is a case study of the West 4 of the Connecticut. The title is Citizens and Resource Allocation, quote, improving decision making with interactive web-based citizen participation. The author, and as a matter of fact, this is a case study of a very good example of participatory budgeting. The author teamed up with the town of West Hartford, Connecticut, to develop a web-based survey to overcome some of these participation problems and help decision makers better understand citizen preferences. The web survey allowed for real-time interactivity and was tailored to present respondents with trade-off between service level and taxes. And most importantly, the web-based citizen participation have a very, very low cost in the implementation to gather the preference of the citizens. So this is a very good case that we can overcome the deficits, in closing the gap of government performance and citizen engagement. So my conclusion here is that public administrators need to think creatively about how to engage the public in deliberative democracy and the collaborative decision making. Schools of public administration and public affairs owe it to future public managers and administrators to provide better training in this process. Public affairs education needs to do more to prepare public administrators for this complexity. These new governance processes can help them build partnership with citizens and stakeholders to do the work of government. There is surely enough to go around. Citizens can and must play an important role in public policy and decision making. Citizens have the right to decide what is important to them and how they can best achieve their objectives. And I think the existing quasi-legislative and the quasi-judicial new governance process, and also the web-based survey techniques, can provide ways to engage individual citizens, the public, and the organized stakeholders in the work of government. So that's my conclusion. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. And I think Jack raised this, several very important points here, include give some direction to the public manager for maybe we can say the future governance. Okay, and I think after Jack, and maybe I think we like to invite the future Professor Zhang. Okay, please.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, everybody here, and I'd like to say thank you to President Zhang for your inviting to this forum, and my moderator for today, the Mr. Juan, and distinguished speaker, Dr. Stevens, and my colleague, Dr. Chen. I'd like to say the hello to the online audience. It's kind of the different way of the citizen engagement that you can participate through the online. I think this is a very important issue, and first I'd like to outline a couple of the major points Dr. Raven just did in his presentations. He talked about the two movement in government performance and citizen engagement. And I think this is a very important trend in the world. And this is also the case in Taiwan. And there are a couple of lessons drawing from the American stories, like including new way in leadership. I would say something about the governor O'Malley. He did the Marion, the state. This is a very good example. And it also changed the bureaucratic culture and the new way of making decisions. And that's the new way to talking to the people. That's why the dashboard is the new way to communicate with the citizens. And so you can see there's a different way of the citizen engagement by the technology. Like he briefly discussed about the online collaborative forums, and also there is the crowdsourcing, co-production, this kind of technique. And you can see, I would say some cases, bring up some example later on. So that's a good practice of the Maryland, the states. Okay. Actually, I was trained in the University of Maryland and stayed in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years. And it's the cherry blossom comes again in Washington, D.C. during in the past few days. And I enjoy a lot. I bet you enjoy too. Yeah. And so I would like to say, what is the Maryland state? It's a performance measurement and a management tool implemented by Governor Martin O'Malley. You can say it's not only a management tool, it's also a communication tool. It's originated from the city-state programs when he was then mayor of the Baltimore cities. And city-state received the Innovation in Government Award by the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. So that's the Jack went to visit Harvard. And you can examine it. The Maryland State is a data-based management approach. The data is carefully analyzed and performance trend are closely monitoring, and the strategy to achieve improve the performance are developed. So it's very important. It's kind of the very good management tools. And like Dr. Rabin just picked up one example in education. So this dashboard focuses on the key issue and the program. And I would say another example, like the violent crime. Like you can go into this so-called watch the governor. And the screen, once you click on the screen, you can see the citizens speak out their concerns about the violent crime. And the governor has promised to reduce the violent crime in Maryland by 20% by the end of the 2018. So that's the promise of the governor. And the scorecard will report the overall progress online, including the total violent crime, homicide cases, rape cases. And you can see the different graphic trends shown on the website. And also, that you can check, are we meeting our goals? These are the important questions the citizen can check. And then, what's the action? That's what kind of strategy or programs taken toward these goals. And the third, what's news? What's the new way to deal with the crime prevalence? And then, how can we get involved? This is a very important part for the citizen engagement. It's tell about the relevant information for the citizens. You can check through the website. And finally, there is additional information and more data. I think this is the most important part of this technique because it's a data-based management tools. So it tells about the citizens. Here's the main backing data set for this page. So you can use it for your own goods. So I would like to say briefly say something about the major characteristics of the Maryland state. It's rich visualizations. So as you can see, Dr. Raven just demonstrated it's truly good since it's rich visualizations. And also it's kind of the technique, bring you up the social sharing capabilities by different pictures and the videos. And online user, they can interact with the dashboard. Secondly, it provides so many open data and customized data templates. So it's user-friendly online data exploration opportunity for the online users. Third, I think I also very enjoy a lot the dashboard. Since it's a platform for different stakeholders by expanding the data access from a highly trained data analyst to a casual user. I think most of us are carry users, not the highly trained data analyst. So this is the most important and very good part of the dashboard. So I would just pick two different examples of the dashboard to tell about how they deal with the issues. The first example is the Maryland Department of the Public Safety and the Correctional Service has established a dashboard for all information on the crime subject, which enhances the communication, data sharing, and cooperation among law enforcement agencies. Thus, can crack down the crimes. And the second example is the eastern part of the U.S., the city of Seattle provide over 120 open data set with information about the city infrastructure and operations. It's shared in the standard form, so that's easy to download and use. So that leading a 40% increase in the city engagement. So it truly can be very fascinating. But I would like to say there are a couple of challenges for the Maryland state or the dashboard. I think the process of the implementation is often considerably time-consuming because there are so many people need to get involved. And so intense discussion on weekly basis or monthly basis. And so it's also very resource intensive. Secondly, I would say they also have the problem with the data misinterpretations or the data manipulations. It could be the case in different countries. Third, how about the data ownership? It's truly a murky areas, very fuzzy. Who own the data? Okay, who can use it and change the data? That's the most of the time we will discuss. And fourth, there also about a couple of concerns with the security and the privacy issues. And that's also if we are going to this kind of Maryland state, like the Maryland state, we have to think about these issues. Finally, I would like to say the paradox about performance monitoring and reportings. We most of the time we like to provide the information for the citizen to get involved, tell about how the government did the jobs. So we create the performance management systems. So that's a good way to get the people get involved. So from the standpoint of the management, without the measurement, one cannot manage it. So leading to search for good indicator, you have to improve the system of the performance management. However, you get what you have measured, but often result in goal displacement and criminal behaviors. That's truly a paradox when we talk about the key issue of the government performance management. So how will we solve these puzzles? I think Dr. Raven bring up the case of the Maryland State. It truly tell us some good way to deal with these problems. Things the dashboard has helped a lot to get the people get involved. That's a good way to increase the transparency and the accountability of the governments. So partially, I would agree this is a good way to solve these puzzles. And from the point of the Taiwan, we also pursue toward this direction to create a similar dashboard. But I think we still have a long way to go. If you can check the website of the RDEC and see how would they different from those in the Maryland, that's a lot. So we have a long way to go. But this is truly a good example. Thanks a lot. This is all my comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang. And I think he gave us some future vision, okay, for this data dash, like some challenge and the paradox for using this kind of method to improve the performance. I think that's an excellent point here.